de la 9 cuando puedes ver este movimiento tan alto. Y tenemos una resistencia aquí en los 44.88 que definitivamente queremos romper con este movimiento, pero a nadie le sorprendería si Roblox da una vuelta acá y empieza a consolidar encima del 9. Eso sigue respetando estructura porque tienes acá este bajo y este bajo más alto, tienes este alto y este alto más alto. Entonces, siempre y cuando venga a consolidar por esta parte y no pierdas los 38, digamos los 38.50, 38.40 dólares de valor, que de nuevo estás bastante por arriba de ello, todo se ve bastante alcista. Cuando volteamos a ver a la mensual, para que nos podamos dar una buena idea de cómo se ve esto, no hay mucha información en Roblox porque también es una de esas empresas que salieron en el 2020, 2021 me parece, 2021, en marzo del 2021. Pueden ver esta vela semanal gloriosa, digo mensual gloriosa, vino, retesteó la media del canal en donde la tengo pintada, no nada más vino a retestear esa, vino a retestear el promedio del 9, el promedio del 21 y ahora va en camino para arriba a pelearse con los 44.88. Definitivamente queremos romper los 44.88, esta vela cierra en 4 días y 6 horas, pero tal cual empiezas a formar una vez más esta estructura alcista. Así que tengan pendiente esto. Esto es básicamente un poco lo que quieren seguir viendo y la continuación del movimiento. Cuando nos acercamos un poco más y nos ponemos a ver la diaria, podemos ver que estamos encima de todos los promedios, del 100 que es el rojo, el 55 que es el naranja, el morado es el S&P 200, el 21 y el 9. Aquí es donde decimos que probablemente el precio venga a retestear por acá, donde ha formado un tipo de suelo en los 42.06 y eso sería bastante saludable para el precio con una buena consolidación. En el Joule de Farhan todavía no tenemos un buy signal, pero se está convirtiendo en un buy signal. El momentum sigue para arriba, momentum sigue para arriba. Lo que estamos esperando es que simplemente no perdamos la zona de los 38.50, 38.40, siempre y cuando no bajemos de esa zona que está más o menos abajo de donde está el 55 y el S&P 200. Todo esto se ve bastante alcista. Tu siguiente objetivo serán los 44.88 y de ahí podemos empezar a intentar romper este 47, que es bastante importante el nivel para poder crear un nuevo alto y de ahí definitivamente ir a buscar esos casi 50 dólares tan deliciosos que tiene Roblox. Y ahí lo tienen, Roblox cotizando en 39, digo, en 44.26, bastante alcista en este momento por diferentes cosas. All right, Alex, let's
Nice.
get it. Wait, now this
Hey,
is
before we do that, somebody's asking me a question. They want to see how I set up my HPDR. Is it cool
okay.
if I pull that up real quick?
Yeah.
All right, so it's pretty basic, my settings on the HPDR, because I don't use the default settings. I change the look back. The look back is based on means the how many bars it looks back to get the statistical data off of that. So if you look at the HPDR, there we go. Here are my settings. All right. So I have price source on a close. This is not the default setting. The sampling length, I switched that to 7. I have this at this is
Why?
100,000 because the default one is 14, and which is a little bit too high in my opinion. Whenever you switch it to 7, it makes the data a little bit more accurate.
Okay.
Because 7 is basically 1 week or 7 bars,
Got it.
and 14 is 2 weeks. So I like to use 7 because it gives you a little bit more of an accurate data numbers.
Got
My
it.
transparency fill is at 85. This is all default. The rest of this is mostly default. The only thing that I really change is this sampling length 7, and then I change these ranges. The ranges at first it gives you like 50% and the 50% is the blue zone usually. I switched that blue zone to 38.2 based off the Fibonacci numbers. So I have 38.2, 50, 61.8, 78.6, and 88.3. This is also custom that I do myself. On the default settings, it doesn't give you the Fibonacci levels. I like to use these because they also work a lot more accurate than the default ones, because price likes, especially on crypto, price loves to follow the Fibonacci levels. So that's what I have as my settings. It's pretty cool
Got
if somebody got the HPDR.
Well, I was going to say, I'm going to have to get it too. I was thinking about it because it's so stupid that I don't have it.
Don't get it yet. Don't get it yet. In a couple of days, it's going on sale.
Okay, so that I can, thank you for that. So that I can put it on and show everyone what the fuck you're talking about exactly. Just like I can show Alex's, because we don't have like any fancy shit. We have everything here. But on yours, if I just have the HBR, I'm able to literally show exactly the same thing.
It gives you my momentum indicators and volatility as well. It's like an HBDR suite, a whole bunch of different indicators.
How much is that?
The regular price is about $800, but it's going to be, I think, 25 or 30% off in a few days because it's going to be Crown's birthday, so it's going to be a little bit cheaper.
Please ping me whenever that happens.
We'll do.
All righty, thank you. Sorry, Alex. It's your turn to shine, baby. What is this? Applied materials? Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know the stock. I'm not sure of the fundamentals, but the chart's
so here you go.
So
real quick, he's saying, good morning. Can you please check AMAT, please? These are NVIDIA suppliers.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. Yeah, because I know NVIDIA has earnings coming up. NVIDIA's charts looking interesting. Yeah. So like essentially what I'm seeing is I want to focus on the weekly here. It's really simple, right? I mean, if you just visually look at this, we've been holding the weekly 21, any major dump that's happened. Granted, we've had one or two closures under it for this entire rally since it basically got reclaimed in January of 2023. And now we're seeing a shift. I mean, a shift in the sense that we've totally flipped these two major moving averages into resistance and even put in a bearish retest here. cause of concern for sure, because what we don't want is what's kind of happening now is trends starting to form back into it's going from an uptrend to a downtrend. And I
Mhm.
do believe it's more evident on the daily. Right here, we can see essentially, this was a big low that it formed, and then we just very cleanly kept making higher lows and higher highs. Yeah, it wasn't until we broke this last higher low here from this point that we had a massive dump, and then breaking this low just exacerbated it. Now we've had an impressive rally, but I mean, even on the daily, you can see exactly where this EMA 100 came, which is one of my bull market or uptrend basically checkpoints. We got to get above that to have any kind of real sustained rally. And for now, it looks like a basically is rejecting it.
Mhm.
Last week's closure also would have been something to be concerned about. This looked like potentially an evening star, a nice move up. Closed not necessarily as a doji, but more
More
small body.
doji. Yeah.
This is often in my opinion, an evening star, even if it's not red. Especially with these two moves up. We'll know if it's an evening star if we get confirmation down this week,
Mhm.
actually. So something to consider that with that too, because usually that's a bearish reversal pattern, and seeing that on the weekly isn't the best. Another point on this chart that I thought was interesting was if we go and take a fib retracement essentially from uh, a bearish one, assuming that the trend's going down from this wick high here to this closing low. You can see here, price is actually having a pretty hard time getting back into that golden pocket zone. Not only do I have my mean line here, I'll make this a different color, but also you can see it's rejecting the 618, an area you would expect to reject and put in that lower high essentially. Um, and then we falling below here isn't now it's just basically catching resistance at the 0.5. So ideally, what's next? Well, what I'm watching on this chart is if we go back to the daily here, we have 2 points. We have also yes, we're rejecting now, but we are approaching support. We can't disregard this support, and what bulls want is essentially this to hold. We don't want this low to break. It's really simple. And we'll know this is going to probably start breaking down if we start losing this mid range here at $186, in my opinion. If we start losing that on a closing basis, and I do think it'll proceed for a dump, and we'll actually go and back test this $166.79 level. But right, we want to first see where the reaction will be at this estimate 200, because on this chart it's been basically a massive level. Each and every time we've gone down to it. Last time was basically here in October where we put in that nice bottom at $129, $130 region. So for now, momentum's with bears, especially with this bearish retest on the daily, losing every major moving average. It's not the best sign, and I wouldn't look for upside basically until we can reclaim this EMA 100 on the daily, right around 210 to 211. If we keep rejecting that, along with the weekly staying under the 9 and the 21, I do think this is flipping and changing structure to a nice easy uptrend to now possibly a downtrend. And if the trend is your friend, you don't want to fight it. And if the chart is telling you something, you don't want to force a trade. That's basically illogical. Just out of curiosity, checking if we have any crosses. At the moment, we do actually have technically a silver cross to the downside as well. That happened on July 29th here. See the 21 moving above the under the 55. Not a good sign. We then expect this 9 to be resistance, which is exactly what's happened now, solidifying that silver cross. So watch closely. Hopium here is that you essentially want this low that was formed. Let me just get this out of here. Basically, the hopium, there's two sides here. So the bull hopium case is essentially we don't break the August 5th low. We will come back down to this $188, $187 region, which essentially will be around this like back test of the SMA 200. At that point, you just want consolidation above. You want to try to form structure so we can get the trend back up, especially on the daily. And this is the spot where this is like the last spot for bulls to hold, in my opinion. If the daily loses this, then it basically will have, in my opinion, it'll just basically be a bad sign for the weekly and the weekly closure. Getting back here and not holding possibly opens up this $165, call it $166 level.
Yeah.
And at that point, I don't see why we wouldn't just go and hit this weekly EMA 100, right at 155 now.
Look at the 2-day one just for my own sake, because I think that puts exactly what you're saying into like that's probably what's going to happen.
Yeah, so
And you're
that's a
about to
good
have a
point.
silver cross too to the downside.
Yeah, so like on this 2 day, it's actually interesting because you're right. Like it's very obvious here that this 21 basically was very important for price, held it down. On top of that, you see here that we are approaching support. We see this on the 2 day EMA 100, but also the daily SMA 200. Big level here. If price doesn't hold it, in my opinion, it's probably going to give us momentum to break this low, solidifying the downtrend. And then you have that estimate 200 here, right? It's very much like on the daily. If the daily can't hold this level, then we look at the next low right around here. And then if we flip to the 2 day, essentially, right? Because if we're rejecting the EMA 100, we go to the 200 SMA. So it'd be the same logic here on the 2 day. We're going to go to the EMA 100. If we lose that, the next level is here, right at 163, and it'll keep going up. Most likely lines up with this 165 region. Ideally, consolidation above there, you could just argue we're in a big range. Ranges from $214 to $166, call it. But as it stands, it looks like a bearish retest. Volume is BBWP is at extremes, but curving up again, and it can keep going and staying at extreme levels. And ideally, that's basically it. I mean, ideally, you just want consolidation at this region here. Bear hopium is essentially we roll over, we lose this estimate 200. It makes for an easy trade then, because what was once massive support is going to be flipped into resistance, and at that point, you'll just target this $165 level. Once we lose this wick low, it's going to exasperate and move down. There's where it'll be really key. Are we going to put in potentially an SFP around here, like this, where price deviates a bit, comes back and tries to flip this back into support? Probably, but we'll have to see if when we get to this level, because nothing's down only, and we can see here, even on this rip up that put in a bearish retest, and this is why having a trigger is really important. If things flip bearish, it's fine. That's good, but you don't, if you're trading, it's okay, but you don't want to front run it. This is still an impressive 24% mean reversion bounce. This chart has a lot of moves up and down. And that's why when you're playing these volatile assets like crypto, or in this case, AMAT associated with NVIDIA, it's always better to play the extremity. So watch closely, essentially. This is kind of the last hopium, in my opinion. This like 189 to 190 level. If bulls can hold that, then potentially they can start arguing this could be the next higher low. But as it stands, daily is in a downtrend. This is looking like a lower high. Yeah, that's it. We are just now, as we speak, approaching support. We lose this today, or just at all on a daily closure. Call it if this goes basically gets a daily closure under $191. Yeah, I'll be looking at this is the next lower high, and we'll be looking at 160 region as the next potential support. And then if that doesn't hold, obviously we have lower. But right, another hopium aspect is just the monthly. Big closure in the next 4 days, essentially. This monthly does look like a bearish retest here. Ideally, then, if you are bearish, you just want these two levels to give. It's this 9 and the 21 here. If that happens, then yeah, I do think this is going to totally. Essentially, I think it's going to give up all of its gains that it made at this point, massive inefficiency, and come all the way back down to this $100 level, $120 level. And then at that point, it'll be very key to see the reaction, which makes sense to me. I mean, when you have a stock that's makes these moves very much like crypto, fizzles out completely, goes in a bear market, consolidates, everyone forgets about it, and then explodes. This looks like the Bitcoin chart in the early days.
Yeah.
So
And that, by the way, that top on the monthly, that top can no, it's on the weekly. There's two super toppy candles that tell you also, if you go by candle theory.
This looks like a shooting star to me.
Yeah.
And then you have another one here, ended up being a trap. Come here, took out these wicks, basically took out the stops here. Ended
Yeah.
up putting in my opinion, the shooting star, and then here you have the expansion. Now I think this is the evening star. But if it is this week, we will go down. Does that have implications for Nvidia? I'm unsure. I don't know the correlation between these two and the way they move together. But I know Nvidia has earnings, and I know Nvidia is at a really key point, but it also does have a silver cross to the upside, potentially giving more, maybe more legs to bulls. Just before I head off, I want to just check out the crosses, and you can see here we do have a silver cross to the downside. I'm pretty sure I mentioned that. So then ideally you just want this 9 to keep rejecting. And this 21 here, it's all kind of meshed together, makes it strong resistance. Let me just see here if the weekly has any kind of crosses. Nope. The only thing I see is the 9s going under the 21. That's, weak. It's signaling that there is weakness here. And something to be mindful of, especially with this bearish retest that basically looks like that to me.
Yeah.
So, ideally just be cautious, watch the daily as your metric on if this is going to be bullish or not. As of now, it looks like in a downtrend. I'm sure bulls are saying this is going to be, some kind of head and shoulder pattern right here, inverse head and shoulder. I don't think so, but we shall see, especially with this support right here at 194. Ideally, you want something like this if you're bullish. We can come down, consolidate for a few days, maybe earnings happen, and then we pop. But as it stands, the trend's your friend, and I would respect it.
It's just on the dailies making me nervous that it's going again so fast to go retest the SMA 200 when he barely touches it. Like there's enough days between each touch, whereas right now it's just like, all right, in like 2 weeks, I'm heading back and
Yeah,
seeing
exactly.
that. And then when I look at, and I never do the quarterly one, but I think it's important on something like this. When I look at the quarterly, it's creating the most insane engulfing bearish
Yeah.
candle ever.
And that's a
So
good point.
yeah,
Good point. And keep in mind, that kind of it didn't fully engulf, but it's looking similar to when we had this massive move down. I'm curious to see what the quarterly looked like here. This is pretty obvious. That's funny. This quarterly doji to the downside. Yeah, I mean, ideally, it's not looking the best, and this is a good point you bring up. I mean, a quarterly, if it does, there's still a month left, and this could easily not
It's a
turn into
massive
it,
bearish
but
engulfing.
as of now,
yeah.
it is engulfing. So not the best look. And that does have it makes me wonder how Nvidia is going to be then, or what the implications are for that. So ideally, yeah, just watch closely. The trend is your friend on an up and down, and if the trend is shifting, and we see that with the major moving averages, we're rejecting the 618 on the bearish retracement. And on top of it, we basically put in potentially an evening star here with a fresh cross of the 9 going under the 21. It's something to be cautious about if you're bullish on this. In my opinion, there should be no reason to be bullish on this chart as long as this 9 here, which is right around 206 on a weekly, is not getting reclaimed. This 206 level getting reclaimed would be the first sign for me, very promising, and then just getting back right above 214 would be really good in my opinion. Looked like a failed breakdown to reclaim to potentially higher. But as it stands, it's not the best. And the daily showing that with BBWP potentially looking like it still wants a little more. So watch closely. If this gets lost, this will be your first sign that this is going to probably break down harder. And then you have to watch this 160 level.
Well done, sir. Thank you so much for sharing that. And then Bitcoin's going to be yours.
I'll bet. Cool.
All right.
Fun one.
Let's go. I know something about that. Okay. Vamos a ver, estamos viendo a Matt. Matt es Amplify Materials Inc., que tiene algo que ver con literalmente NVIDIA, como dice acá George. Dice, buenos días, pueden checar a Matt. Son suppliers de NVIDIA, eso quiere decir son proveedores de NVIDIA. Y no de NVIDIA, como la que tiene tu tío, porque está saliendo con la tetona del barrio. Estamos hablando de NVIDIA, la compañía que crea microchips. Este es un gran chiste que me da tristeza que Farhan y Alex estén perdiendo. Pero bueno, vamos a... Aparte, ¿no? Yo diciendo que mis chistes son fenomenales. Ok, lo primero que les quiero enseñar en esta tabla es la del cuarto. ¿Y a qué me refiero el cuarto? Son 3 meses. Cada una de estas velas son 3 meses juntos, ¿ok? Para que podamos ver el tipo de movimiento que ha tenido. En este momento, AMAT está cotizando en $197.68. Eh, quiero enseñarles el movimiento que ha tenido desde el 2019. Ha sido literalmente un 820%. Y cuando lo vemos un poco más cerca, acá del octubre del 2022, que fue el fondo del mercado donde estamos, hace un movimiento de 264% a la alza. Bastante bien, y no voy a decir 1-1 con Nvidia, pero bastante parejo. Ahora, cuando estamos viendo el gráfico trimestral, estamos viendo que está creando una vela envolvente bajista. En este momento el cierre todavía falta un mes y 5 días para cerrarlo, pero esto sería una de las velas más bajistas que hay ahora sí que en cualquier tabla, y esto te diría que probablemente la cosa no se ve bien. Voy a poner mis indicadores rápidamente para que vean. Venimos, ni siquiera retesteamos el 9 que está en los 168 y nos fuimos para arriba, pero aún así estamos aquí abajo en los 198 y ha llegado un máximo de 255. Cuando volteamos a ver a la semanal, y esta va a ser una reorganización de la tabla, ¿qué es lo que estamos viendo? Vemos que en la semanal venimos de acá arriba. En la semanal habíamos creado una vela de tope, 2 velas de tope. No tuviste ninguna confirmación en esta zona, pero esto te dio la confirmación, este caidón, porque tuviste el cierre aquí y luego tuviste otro cierre aún más abajo y luego tuviste otro cierre aún más abajo. Esto te confirma que muy probablemente esto sea un tope. Ahora, el precio cae, rebota en el 55, el promedio de 55 se va para arriba. ¿Qué pasa normalmente en este escenario? Vienes a retestear el 9 y el 21 y tal cual, retesteados, fallado y cayó. Volvimos a intentar llegar, ni siquiera llegamos y bajamos. Volvimos, ni siquiera llegamos a la mitad del camino y viene en bajada esta vela semanal, ¿ok? Cuando volteamos a ver a la diaria nos pone mismo. Aquí pueden ver, y esto es algo que a mí personalmente me preocupa, el precio de AMAT, lo poco que tocamos el SMA 200, que es aquí una, y esto fue en diciembre del 2022, no lo volvimos a venir a ver hasta noviembre del 2023, un año después. Y en este momento, donde está el precio, acabamos de romper, recuerden que mi SMA 200 es la línea morada que están viendo acá, la acabamos de romper a la baja, la volvimos a retomar y ahí vamos a retestear en este momento en 197. El SMA 200 está en 194 y va a subir. Cuando volteé a ver todas estas velas por acá, esto también es una, uy, casi no. ¿Lo es o no? No. Ok. Eh, cuando estoy viendo el precio en la diaria, sobre todo, podemos ver cómo perdemos el 21, el 9, podemos ver cómo perdimos el 21, el 55. Tienes un cruce plateado a la baja, un silver cross a la baja, donde el 55 y el 21 cambian de dónde están. Uno se va encima, bueno, el 21 se va por abajo del 55, eso es un cruce plateado a la baja. También rompiste el SMA 100 en la diaria y estás peleándote contra él, no pudiste llegar a retestar el 55, cayó, intentaste retomar el 21 y el 9 y te está rechazando, y ahí vienes a donde está literalmente el SMA 200 una vez más en los 194. Y eso es lo que me preocupa, no se retestea tanto. Si quieres olvidarte de los indicadores, que es lo que estamos formando solamente para la gente que esté aprendiendo, un doble tope como de McDonald's, luego tienes una gran caída, pierdes niveles importantes en esa gran caída. No tienes velas de tope en la diaria, pero las tienes en la semanal, y además tienes esta ineficiencia que a ver si el precio lo va a venir a intentar cerrar en los 231. Pero por ahora lo importante es que esto no pierdas los 189. Si pierdes los 189, tu siguiente lugar a buscar son los 171. Si llegas a romper eso, estás en una tendencia clara bajista y no estás formando nueva estructura a la alza. Ahorita lo que la gente podría decir es que estás pasando de aquí y que va el precio por acá, y siempre y cuando y rebote, si ven justamente donde puse la línea y toca y converge con el 190, si el precio rebota aquí para arriba, bien, estás creando estructura alcista, pero si no lo hace, estás viendo un tope tal cual. Y esto es importante porque Nvidia va a declarar resultados el miércoles y se va a poner buena la cosa. Alrighty, let's go. MicroStrategy. There's no better option. What'd you say?
There's
It
no
was like the
second
Mercedes.
best.
There's no second best. Sounds like a
Mortgage your
BMW
house.
catchphrase.
Get rid of the college fund. All in on Bitcoin.
All in on Michael Saylor.
If you have a family business that you've been running for the past 25 years and you can't fathom to sell it, mortgage it and put the assets into the money into the most hard asset on the planet, Bitcoin.
Very hard. Very hard.
And why does Michael Saylor have the smallest hands I've ever seen in a regular person wearing a suit? Have you ever seen those videos from the past where he's wearing a brown suit and he's talking about like Apple stock and he's talking about like Bitcoin? No, maybe just Apple stock. And he's wearing a regular suit. I think it's brown, but my memory doesn't work well with colors like that. And his hands are so small.
His hands look small. I'm pulling up the photo. What the heck?
So small. It's really fucking weird. I think there's like do you guys see Men in Black? Like the little alien operating the person? I think we have some kind of thing like that going on with Michael Saylor. But I'm going to leave you guys to make that judgment on your own. We'll analyze it separately. But it does look like he's an alien.
Interesting.
With small, tiny hands.
Who loves Bitcoin? Who's hard for Bitcoin?
Oh my God. He fucking loves Bitcoin. You know, he's in his bedroom at night and he's like, suck my Bitcoin. And he's got a tattoo of Bitcoin in his dick. And then he's like, also get 100%. The Bitcoins. And then it's the balls and everything is just called the Bitcoin. I'm going to give you the Bitcoin tonight. You know, that's all he does.
You already know whenever he's doing his little Coinbase buys on his iPhone, he's ripping lines of coke, pressing that button.
And by the way, all the coke is arranged like a Bitcoin.
Like a B. Yeah, exactly.
Bitcoin. Ready.
All right, so MicroStrategy on the weekly. We in the past couple of weekly candles, we ended up reclaiming this blue 38.2 zone. We rejected it for the first time. Now we're finding a little bit of resistance here. We should expect even if it is bearish to come up here to test this top of the blue zone, since we are above the median and we've closed above it, which is currently at $156.57. If you flip to the directional volatility or the momentum, right now it's starting to flip down. Well, the volatility is slipping down as well, which tells us that whatever move we get from here should be a corrective move and not really a trending move, especially since we're looking at this top of the blue zone to get hit at $156.57. If you look at our jewel is starting to curve back down, and it's giving us this dark blue color, which is considered the sell signal. It's not really confirmed yet. We need one more close to actually to give it a full curvature downwards, and we will very likely get it if we reject this $156.57 area. We reject that, it's going to confirm that dark blue color, and we have to expect that we're going to come back down to this bottom 38.2, which is currently at $131.05. At that point, I would be looking for it to base there and at least give us a little bit of a bounce, come back to retest the median. If it gets above the median, then I would say next higher low is in, and we can keep going from there. If it rejects the median, though, I would look for it to come down even lower and retest its 55 EMA, which is currently at $108.48. If we look at the monthly is looking kind of interesting. We're still above every single major EMA. We're getting a huge wick to the downside. We're getting buying pressure back up, and we've reclaimed the 9 EMA and the 5 EMA. I think we can most likely consolidate here if we, as long as we close this with a wick like this as a hammerhead. But the reason why I don't think that we continue to the upside from here is because of what range we're at. We're already at the 88.3% level, so it gives you a very small chance of continuation from here. What I would wait for is this monthly to close. As long as we're still above every single major EMA, then I would look for these ranges to move up. If they do, then from there I could say that we have the setup to continue higher. But until then, I would say sideways / down is the more likely path. When we look at our momentum indicators, its momentum is starting to flip back up to the upside, and we're above the moving average. And the volatility is starting to do that as well, where we're flipping back up and we're above the moving average. So I would look for whatever movement we get from this monthly setup to be impulsive and not corrective. And since momentum is starting to point back up, As long as we hold all of our major moving averages, especially the 5 EMA, I would say, and then the confirmation would be the range is moving up. If that moves up, then I would say, okay, we have our next higher low in right here, and we can move up and get our next impulsive move to the upside, which probably coincides with Bitcoin, because Bitcoin right now has our first weekly closure above the median since February at $48,000. The monthly on the opposite end, though, we're getting a little dark blue sell signal on the jewel, but we're still the pink is still above the yellow, and the jewel oscillator is above both of them. So if this does confirm, I would look for it to curve down right here, find a base somewhere around this 60 area, which I consider the bullish control zone, and then flip back up from there, which I think is more likely to happen because we're above every single major moving average, but we're more likely to go down because of the ranges are so high up. We're at the 88.3. So that would tell us that if we do consolidate and go down a little bit, along with this jewel sell signal, then we would wait for that to base and for the jewel in this bullish control zone, and our ranges to move up, and then we can continue higher. Let me draw a fib extension. I'll go for this one here. Yes, right now we're holding at the 78.6 level, which is right at the 88.3 and the 5 EMA, which is $144.56. If we do continue to get closures like this above this area and our ranges move up, my next logical target would be somewhere around this 99%, which is at $365. Very likely it's not going to happen in 1 month, 2 months, or 3 months. It's going to take a good amount of time for that to happen. And after that, I'd be looking at the $500 area based on the 161.8% level. If we look at the quarterly on MicroStrategy, yeah, quarterly, right? Quarterly even further proves my previous thesis that we don't go straight up from here, and we probably range, because right now we're hitting the 99 and 100% range on the quarterly. We even went above it. We went above the HPDR completely. So we're at such extreme levels. The most logical thing is to expect some consolidation and sideways from here. We look at the jewel. The jewels, we don't even have enough data to populate the yellow slow moving average. We only have the pink. But the pink is a more important one. We're above the pink, and we're getting a fresh cyan color to the upside. We draw a line of 35. I consider the 35 to be the bearish control zone. So whenever we get a flip around in 35, that usually gives you a very, very strong, at the very least, a mean reversion, if not a reversal. The last time we had it was right here. I'll draw a vertical line. And then right here. It's only ever happened twice where we've flipped back up in the bearish control zone on the quarterly. And the dates, 2019, 2009. What happened with the price there? We got a little bit of a COVID dump. This should be considered a black swan.
That must be a humongous dump, yeah.
Yeah, let's get a little measurement tool. Yeah, 45% in one candle, where we went down after the COVID dump. But this can technically be considered a black swan event, because COVID, nobody really expected it, and it came out of nowhere, and every single market dumped. But if you were to do it, the math from when the jewel actually did flip, and how much of a move up it got from there, it was about 819%. We do it from here, from the last one. This one we didn't have our little black swan. Price moved up 89%. Well, we got to go to the high. It moved up 140, almost 141%. Right now, we're getting that same thing right now, where the jewel is flipping back up from the bearish control zone, but we're hitting extremes on our momentum and volatility indicators, as well as hitting extreme ranges on the HPDR. So just like over here, where we kind of went sideways for a little bit while the ranges moved up, and then we had a real move, is what I would expect to happen here. Sideways / down, maybe a little pullback, consolidation, ranges move up, and then we can get the real move from there.
Would you say the critical level of MicroStrategy is just not losing the EMA 9 on the monthly, for example, like the 123? And just continue to keep the structure and not lose the 102, right?
Yeah, if you lose the 5 EMA, then you're very likely going to come back down to test the top of the blue zone, 38.2% level, which is going to go up after next month. And I would say it's probably going to be somewhere around in the $70 to $75 range, which is a pretty significant dump from here.
Yeah, agreed. Okay. For you, next is Oxy, and thank you so much for that. Tenemos acá MicroStrategy. MicroStrategy, como todos ustedes saben, es un gran proxy para Bitcoin y espero que se estén divirtiendo con sus Bitcoins todos ustedes en este momento. MicroStrategy lo único que es una compañía de tecnología, pero literalmente lo que los está haciendo tener este tipo de alzas es que tienen una gran parte de su liquidez guardada en Bitcoin y aparte han emitido nuevas acciones para poder endeudarse y comprar más Bitcoin y como todos ustedes saben, Bitcoin está a la alza, así que MicroStrategy está bastante bien arriba. Estamos viendo la tabla mensual, podemos ver que estamos bastante por encima de absolutamente todo, consolidando en este momento el precio en un rango entre los 102 y los 172. MicroStrategy está cotizando en 148.32 en este momento y de nuevo sigue en una tendencia alcista, aunque viendo todos los indicadores de Farham podemos decir que todo está un poco sobrecomprado y para poder ver más movimientos al alza, tenemos que ranguear justamente aquí donde estamos. Si no podemos ranguear aquí donde estamos, no podemos bajar los promedios y sin bajar los promedios no podemos seguir moviéndonos para arriba. Entonces, seguimos empujando definitivamente a la alza y pueden verlo acá. Estamos creando buena estructura, no estás creando nuevos bajos. El bajo más bajo que vio local en este rango fue en abril del 2024. Acá vinimos a intentar retomarlo, pero ni siquiera llegamos y empujamos para arriba. De ahí nos trepamos al EMA 21, después al 9 y seguimos arriba, lo que lo hace ver una tendencia alcista también en la semanal. En la diaria, MicroStrategy está haciendo un poco de lo mismo. Tienes un cruce plateado a la baja acá, pero estás ahora ya brincando por encima de literalmente el EMA 100, el 9, el 21 y el 55, y ahora vas a rankear entre mi zona de 144 y 172. Si MicroStrategy continúa consolidando en este rango sin romper los bajos que vimos antes, el objetivo a largo plazo, y estamos hablando probablemente más de entre 3 y 9 meses, está por ahí de los $370, pero tiene que seguir rangueando y respetar esto. Si llega a perder el rango y empieza a bajar, y obviamente esto es directamente afectado por Bitcoin, puedes imaginarte que tu siguiente objetivo serían los $102 o mínimo el S&P 200 que en este momento está en los 112. Podemos ver altos más altos, un alto más bajo, un alto más alto, pero este bajo es más alto que este, por lo que sigue creando estructura alcista para adelante. Se ve bien, bastante, ¿cómo se llama? Eh, Bastante rangona, si lo quieren ver así, ¿no? Cómo se está yendo de ladito y es parte de, no puede todo simplemente explotar a la alza y ya, tiene que darse respiros. Así que ahí lo están viendo, MicroStrategy creando la M de MicroStrategy. ¿Cómo lo está haciendo? Vean, nada más. Voy a dibujarlo por pendejo, ¿ok? La M de MicroStrategy. Bueno, ya basta de pendejadas. Voy a poner a Alex con el análisis de Bitcoin. Bitcoin, Alex. We're ready for the Bitcoin analysis. The
I'm muted.
Bitcoin.
Let me show this.
Wow, what a beautiful coin.
Nice. All right. So let's go back here. So basically, what we saw, it was a big dump. What happened in August? That wasn't the best of signs, especially when we lost this daily EMA 100. That's something that's just been like a point that I've been talking about with Bitcoin. Let me just take this off real quick. Why? Because it's just a big level. I mean, if you were watching Bitcoin closely in 2023, it would be no surprise to you that it was a big level because, anytime we'd come down, rally started 2023. Anytime we came down 2024, it marks some major bottom here. We'd get some major reaction. Price likes to be above that. So then essentially when we had this July dump here, we basically flipped that into resistance and fell. That's something I was watching for the first half. Now we broke through it, and that's a good sign. It doesn't take a few green candles though for me to go full balls deep bullish. I want the chart to prove to me that it is bullish. And how that would need to be done now is I simply just want to back test to this area. I'm like the nines going perfectly almost to that 100. usually we do backtest it once we reclaim it. Usually, especially with Bitcoin. You can see this very much so. It reclaimed it, price dumped straight into it, quickly got bought up, and that was an opportunity to bid this EMA 100. I'm essentially watching the same thing now. It's no surprise to me that we basically are having this downside move, especially if you watch the 4-hour candles. This wasn't the best. This is like a shooting star in a 4-hour, while also not being able to reclaim this meme diagonal that, if you guys have been watching the streams for a while, this is something I haven't changed. I don't change my lines. They're meme lines, but I don't change them because it works. And, this diagonal was something we were talking about needed to hold. It did not. And ever since we lost this, it was a major dump. Here as well, major dump. So, it's interesting to see how this kind of stopped the price from going up more. I'm sure bears are looking at this. I'm sure many are looking at this diagonal because it's working. That's what that tells me. People are looking at this as basically a double top on the 4-hour with a shooting star, and they want this to go down. I'm sure people are shorting this now. Personally, I have no trigger to short. It'd be too risky to short up here. Because look at these wicks. This is a lot of volatility up. You're getting multi-$1,000 moves up for it then closing still under it. It makes this trading a little harder, especially if you use leverage. But for me, the easy trade is this. And this is something I've been talking about on the Elite Trading Academy Discord. Just wait for the back test. Let price prove to you that it's bullish. Per the book, if what was once resistance falling under major support, you should get a back test. It doesn't have to happen immediately like this one did. But ideally, that is something that we all should be on the lookout for. When you get this 9 touching almost this 100, which in the next few days, it will keep coming up more, while this 100 is slowly coming down, that's bullish. And it solidifies that this was a major spot for price. And there is strength. And we know that because of this cross here, 9 above the 21. Something to watch. And I do think it's interesting how basically, if you look at where price stopped, it was right at the diagonal. And we weren't able to close any closures above this. This is something I was talking about. Yes, we reclaimed major moving averages, and that's why it constitutes for a backtest, and it makes sense. How do we reclaim this diagonal? We would have wanted this diagonal to hold then, not fall back in, fall back below it. So ideally, that's something to watch. I mean, it makes sense that we're coming down, especially like I mentioned, the 4-hour potential double top with the shooting star here. For me now, I have 2 points. It basically has just been the same analysis I've been talking about, where we now have reclaimed the 9 on the weekly. That was my first major point on Bitcoin going up, is it needs to reclaim the 9. If you go and look, where's the 9 now? It's currently sitting at 62,400. It's a very interesting point to me because Bitcoin needs to prove to me now that this has flipped it into support. It's not forming another lower high here. On top of that, we right around that 62K 400 low, we have this EMA 100. Another point in my system where price needs to get above and hold this. So not only do we have the weekly EMA 9, but the EMA 100 on the daily, all coming around this point. Now, right now, what we see is we are at the SMA 200. So it makes sense. We should see a bounce here. Personally speaking, this should hold if we're super duper bullish, in my opinion. If not, then we have to look at the 100. And that's okay. If we even tap it and go, maybe leaves a wick, unsure. But ideally, you'd want this SMA 200 to hold. If it doesn't, slight weakness in my book. And then losing this 109 will be kind of the determination on, in my opinion, if this was a big trap, forming a lower high. Bitcoin, I said last week essentially, and I had a bear bias going into last week. But I'd mentioned the importance of bears need to step in last week. They were kind of running against time, and we see why. This whole dump to just slow bleed down while price is slightly making structure on like an hourly chart. We'll go to the 2-hour. was our sign. Like right here at this point, it was in an uptrend structure on the 2 hour. Made this low, high didn't break this high. We came down, made another low, but couldn't break the last previous low. So it's a higher low to the higher high, and we just kept doing that until we got the breakout. On top of this, we did talk about this wedge here. We knew volatility was going to happen, especially with an event that we had last week. I guess it was true and it worked out. Another point here, and this is where I went wrong, is I should have longed this retest here. Very, very easy, obvious invalidation, falling back below, even on a 2 hour you cut. This
Hindsight 2020, son.
100%. And like the only reason I bring this up is because I'm always analyzing what I could have done either in a good trade or a bad trade. And to me, it's nice because I have utter confidence in my meme lines. And this proves to me that it did work. So now what we all should be watching for is you ideally want to see what today's going to close like. If we're super duper bullish and Bitcoin's just going to go to the moon from here, this SMA 200 needs to hold, as simply put. If it's slightly weaker and we should be more on the edge of concern, we'll lose this. But then we definitely quickly want to get it reclaimed after we actually backtest this 9, this EMA 100. And then on top of that, the weekly is telling me, yeah, there's major bounce areas right around 62.2 to 62.4. Something to definitely be watching, because what we'd want is just a quick, like here, reclaimed the 9, major dump, quick tap to go. Now, this wasn't a sustained rally, but that's the idea behind it. You just want a quick tap and go. What you don't want is prices start fizzling, making this EMA 9 come up more, and then potentially leading to a dump. I know I have another chart here that kind of is representing, the downtrend here on the weekly. And this is still valid, right? So ideally, then what we'd want is we just want to break this here. We don't want this to roll over, which corresponds with the diagonal, something we've been watching for a while now, to basically solidify that this, is a lower high. I'm on the camp now that Bitcoin is bullish. I just need it to prove to me that it is before I assume it. And holding these levels, the weekly 9 and the daily EMA 100, is, in my opinion, very imperative. Because then at that point, then we can say that it is bullish because it's holding the bull market levels, in my opinion, the uptrend market. And that is something when we dumped in July, or I guess, 2 weeks ago, this is still hopium here. And this is why I know Farn uses the 5. There's nothing wrong with that. I like the 9 because the whole time the monthly didn't lose the 9 yet. And that to me is the last nail in the coffin. If we lose the EMA 9, I'll be extremely bearish on Bitcoin, even if the 21 is still holding, because what we could have is this scenario here: loses the 9, but it's still holding the 21, gets a little bounce to just major dump, and then here, still rejected. Essentially, this was a trap, and this is a trap. When price reclaims a major level after bouncing, no follow through. If you see it, just opened up the month on April of 2022 to a slight upside to only down only. So something to watch here, but that is the hopium. And this monthly candle can turn insane. And keep in mind, this can be one of the biggest monthly candles in Bitcoin's history, in my opinion. This was a massive dump to buy back. If this flips green, in my opinion, this will be one of the strongest candles we've had on a Bitcoin monthly. I've been looking closely to see cite maybe this scenario here, but no follow through. What we like about this is the fact that we did take the liquidity, we got the buyback, and we're back above the 9. Still pointed up too, which is welcoming. But I can't just only say we're going to go up only, because I need price to prove to me that it will. And ideally, this diagonal should have gotten broken, IMO. That's fine if it didn't. Okay, no big deal. Then we have the weekend. We'll see if this SMA 200 holds. If it does not hold, then I am looking at 62,200 to 62,500 being the area that we're going to get a bounce. That's an area where if we are going to be bullish, that is where we should bounce. We can obviously wick below, but we do not want any closures below this 100. This will then lead to basically me, unfortunately, having to put in another deviation here, which I don't want to do. And we mentioned the same thing here. and it makes sense if you just use this chart here. We were holding this major support area for a while. Lots of chop, yes, but for the most part, this area here, this 63,900, 64,000 was holding. This weekly did reclaim it, which is welcoming. Let's just see where this closes next for this week. Like I said, we just don't want this to deviate. This wouldn't be the best of signs. Tether dominance too. I'm more neutral on it. But I am still watching closely because again, just like when we went over here, we can't disregard that it is in my opinion in an uptrend. Yes, I use this more on a wick basis. That's more opinionated, but I feel like wick bases work better with Bitcoin specifically. And in my opinion, this was the higher high right here at 6.77%. We were coming down. We fell back below. We never can close above this EMA 100 on the weekly, but we like that it's still coming down, and it's perfectly lining up with this blue line here at 5.9% roughly. So now on this chart on Tether dominance, so keep in mind, USD dominance is the inverse correlation to Bitcoin. If this is bullish, Bitcoin goes down. So ideally, this is something we've been watching for a while now as well. One thing I never like to do is change my charts and manipulate them to make it look like it worked, because it's stupid. That doesn't make sense. And basically what I'm seeing is still in an uptrend, and price can come all the way down to here and still be in an uptrend, in my opinion, on the weekly. It's not until we break this last higher low on the weekly at 4.7%, where then this will nuke hard, especially with the major bearish divergence we have on the RSI on the weekly. Multiple drives, I do believe. So something to watch here. Tether dominance also is at support, and if you go to the 2-day, it's actually telling a story. To me, this could look it's called a three pattern inside bar. You get a massive dump. This close right here, it closes here with a wick, and then you get this move up and down, but the closure is still roughly around the same closure as this, and then you'd want the expansion up, basically forming like a spring here. That is something I'm watching on Tether dominance. It gets more evident on the 2-day, but then on the daily, you can see here we had a dump, it closed, and then this slightly closed higher than this, and now we're getting that follow through, especially after reclaiming our support meme line. This was a big support meme line here. This was basically once this was above, we kind of went pretty aggressively up. Granted, we were still above the 9.